One. Hello and welcome to today's Expert Chat. My name is Matt and I'm on the Understood team, and today we're going to be talking about assistive technology for issues like dyslexia and dysgraphia. And we're really excited to have with us Jamie Martin. Jamie's an assistive technology consultant and trainer and really helpful on these issues. Jamie, welcome.
Thanks, and happy Thanksgiving to you, Matt, a little bit early.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And to everyone else who's watching today, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, do you mind giving our audience a little bit of an introduction of yourself?
Sure, no problem. So I've been an educator for well over 20 years now, probably approaching 25 at this point. I started out as an English teacher, a middle school English teacher. Eventually, I got involved in a school that specialized in educating dyslexic students. And basically fell in love with that. I did some Morton Gillingham tutoring for a while until I was fortunate enough to get, I don't want to say roped into, but I got involved with assistive technology, and I haven't gone back since then because I think I'm a much better AT person than I was an OG person. So that's where I am now. So I'm an independent consultant and trainer now. I do quite a bit of travel. I meet with families, both in person and online. I do some teacher training, and as people who are regular watchers of Understood know, I do quite a bit of work with Understood, which is always a joy. I really enjoy working with you guys and your audience.
Well, we're very glad that we were able to rope you into this chat, so excited to get to the content. Before we get started, I just want to remind our audience that if you have any questions, Jamie's here to answer them. There's a chat box on the screen. Go ahead and leave your questions there. If you can be specific about your child's age and issue type, that would be helpful so we can get the most specific information. But let's go ahead and kick off, and I want to start with dyslexia. So obviously kids with dyslexia have trouble with reading. What kinds of assistive technology tools are out there specifically for reading that you would recommend?
Well, there's a handful of assistive technology tools that can certainly help kids with reading. Maybe the most basic two are audiobooks and text-to-speech. So audiobooks are pre-recorded. It's a human-read recording of a book, and families can access those through a fantastic organization called Learning Ally. You can go to learningally.com. But you can also get them through other outlets like Audible, which is a partner with Amazon. And those are great for kids to listen to books that are recorded by a human being. But then kind of the flip side of that is text-to-speech technology, where kids are taking electronic text and having technology convert that electronic text into a synthesized voice, a computer voice that will read those kinds of text out loud. You can use text-to-speech with any kind of electronic content, email, websites, things like that. But if you're talking about books, you can also have ebooks read out loud with text-to-speech. And I actually should mention this, Matt, that a fantastic source for electronic books is an organization called Bookshare. And great news, over in the last 2 weeks or so, Bookshare just was able to renew their government grant. So they got a new 5-year grant through the Department of Education. So families who rely on Bookshare are all set for at least for the next 5 years in terms of accessing those accessible electronic books. So audiobooks, text-to-speech are great for just helping kids with decoding and having text read out loud to them. But there are some other aspects to reading that AT can also help with. In terms of reading comprehension, electronic dictionaries, things that can read dictionary definitions out loud, can certainly help with reading comprehension. Electronic note-taking tools like electronic highlighters or electronic sticky notes where you're identifying main ideas, supporting details in a particular reading. All of that can help with reading comprehension. And one more I'll mention is electronic graphic organizers. So something like Inspiration Maps or MindMeister or a mind mapping tool like that can certainly help kids with reading comprehension, where they're organizing ideas that they read in a very visual way. So lots of different things that kids can use in terms of AT to help them with reading.
I love a lot of those examples. And, I think when a lot of parents think about assistive technology, they're thinking of devices. And that could be devices just for assistive technology or even the things that we carry around in our pockets all the time. So, we all have these devices like iPads, like Chromebooks. Can you talk about how to access assistive technology for reading on kind of the different devices?
Yeah, sure. So why don't we start with what I think are the two probably most common kinds of devices now in 2017. One is a mobile device, like your iPhone or your iPad or your Android phone, if you have one of those. And there's some really fantastic built-in accessibility features right within those mobile operating systems. So iOS, which is Apple's mobile operating system, has built-in text-to-speech. There's actually two options. One is called Speak Selection, and the other one is called Speak Screen. And Android has just improved their built-in text-to-speech, and they have a great feature called Select to Speak in terms of providing that reading support. I'm not going to get too much into those in terms of detail because I actually just made a 3-minute tutorial video with Understood. So whoever's watching today, I can certainly find that right there on the Understood website. It'll walk you through how to activate and use those text-to-speech tools on those mobile devices. But then beyond the built-in accessibility features, if you need more kind of full-featured or robust assistive technology tools, specifically for reading, you can invest in a great app called Voice Dream Reader, which is a great reading tool. Also, that'll sync up to Bookshare accounts as well. So you can access all of your Bookshare books through Voice Dream Reader. And that's available for both iOS devices and Android devices. And there's a number of other apps that you can kind of do your research on the Understood website or elsewhere, where you can really find more full-featured AT tools on those mobile devices. Chromebooks, the Chrome operating system, or Chrome OS, also has some built-in accessibility features. Specifically for reading, they have a fairly new text-to-speech feature called Select to Speak, which actually works very much like the Android Select to Speak. I have to admit it's a little bit clunky because it's brand new, and I've had some success with it on some websites or some things that I need read out loud. Others, it's not so great. But knowing Google, they're going to keep working on that and keep improving that over time. So keep an eye on that one. If you have a child with a Chromebook, check out the accessibility features right there in the Chromebook and find a feature called Select to Speak. That's a great reading tool for Chromebooks. Beyond that, there's some great reading tools in extensions and apps. So there's a great extension called Read and Write for Google Chrome, which not only has reading tools, but writing tools, note-taking tools, things like that. Snap and Read Universal is a fantastic Chrome extension for reading. I mentioned Learning Ally a little bit earlier for audiobooks. They have a Chrome app that you can access all of their books on. So lots of options there for Chromebooks as well. And then finally, desktop and laptop computers, because some kids are still using those. The Mac operating system has fantastic text-to-speech built right into the operating system. So you can find that under the system preferences. And once you're inside the system preferences, you can look under the speech section, and it'll walk you through how to operate the text-to-speech there. There's also, we haven't gotten to the writing tools yet, but there's also built-in dictation on the Mac operating system as well. Windows has a built-in screen reader, but you can actually, a great option for text-to-speech on Windows is a free downloadable piece of software called Natural Reader. So if you go to naturalreader.com, you can download that if you're a Windows user. I could probably keep going all day, Matt, on this, but let me stop here because I'm sure there are other directions we want to go through in this chat.
So we're getting some questions in. So first of all, those were great suggestions. And if you're looking for more information on different apps, I know Jamie mentioned Voice Dream Reader, other extensions, check out Understood's Tech Finder tool. You can say how old the child is and what they're struggling with, and we can kind of send you expert vetted apps with one of our partners, Common Sense Media. So if you're looking for specific apps, definitely check that out. And those are some really great examples. And I want to move to some user questions, some questions from parents, because I think these are really good. So we've talked about like examples of assistive technology, but I want to bring in Carrie's question, because Carrie says, how do I get my 14-year-old dyslexic son to use the technology in class? He doesn't like being identifiably different, so he refuses to wear headphones or keyboard in class. What would you say to that?
That's a tough question, and I don't know if I have an answer that is kind of universally applies to all children who are kind of reluctant to use assistive technology. But I think Carrie's right. That kind of stigma piece traditionally has kind of kept kids from wanting to use assistive technology, particularly in the classroom when other kids are around. I think the good news, though, for Carrie's child and other children who might be feeling different because they have to use AT, is that a lot of these tools are built into devices that all of the other kids in class are using anyway. So if all of the kids in the classroom have a Chromebook, I think kids like Carrie's child can use the assistive technology kind of indiscreetly while the other kids are doing the same kinds of assignments on their Chromebook. Same with a mobile device like an iPad. When you're using text-to-speech, you do have to, when you're in the classroom, you probably do have to plug in some earbuds. But you can certainly, you don't need those giant Beats ones, which will make you stand out. You can get some wireless earbuds, kind of like this little guy that I have on here. And unless kids are really paying attention, they're kind of unnoticeable, and they could be more discreet. So again, I don't know if there's a universal answer in terms of the stigma piece, but I think we are making huge strides because of all the technology that we're using in schools, and in terms of universal design. So in a universally designed classroom, kids are using a lot of the same technology, and the assistive technology can be a little more discreet, I think.
I think those are great suggestions, and breaking that stigma is really important, and as much as we can help these kids is just so important. I want to move on to Christy's question, which is a little bit similar. She has a fourth grader with dyslexia, and I'm going to paraphrase here, but essentially she can't use audiobooks at home, at school, but can at home, and she's starting to fall behind. I think Christy's having trouble kind of working with the school in order to get her son or daughter to kind of get what they need in the classroom, in the school. Do you have suggestions on how to kind of have a good working relationship with the school in terms of assistive technology?
Well, I think the first thing that parents might need to do is actually help educate the teachers about what options are available with assistive technology. As many huge strides as we're making in public schools and private schools in terms of making more assistive technology available and actually implementing that in the classroom, there are still many, many schools and many teachers who simply just aren't aware of what the options are, aren't aware of programs like Bookshare, or aren't aware of programs like Learning Ally. So as a parent, I think a great strategy would be to just kind of informally at first contact your teacher and say, look, we have these great accommodations that our child is using at home. They work really well for homework and all the stuff that they do when they're in our house. Can I come in and share some of these ideas with you because they might help my child in your classroom and other kids in your classroom? And just kind of take it kind of informally and try to strike up a partnership with the teacher in a very kind of unthreatening kind of way, because I think a lot of teachers will appreciate learning about assistive technology and how they can help your kids in school. If that doesn't work, if the teachers are reluctant, then you might need to certainly go through the IEP or the 504 process, and go through the special ed director or somebody like that, get all those tools in writing so that they're hopefully being implemented in the classroom. And hopefully that will do the trick. If that doesn't do the trick, you might need to explore some legal avenues there too. But hopefully it won't get to that. Hopefully you can strike up a great partnership with your kids' teachers so that everybody's on board and on the same team in terms of helping your child out.
I think that's a really good point because, I was talking to some parents the other day who really didn't know everything that even smartphones could do and were a little wary of their kids using it. And when we talked about the assistive technology that was built in, it really changed their mind. So educating teachers and parents around this can be really important. And then, of course, using the IEP or other legal documentation if you need to. So I think those are really good points. Judette asks, her 14-year-old son was diagnosed with ADHD and is starting the process for putting assistive technology into the IEP. What should she expect in that process, and maybe what kinds of examples of AT might she suggest?
Okay, sure. So when schools are considering, first of all, I should say that by law under IDEA. Schools are required to consider assistive technology as part of the IEP, as part of the IEP process. So what you might see at the beginning of that process is the school perform an assistive technology evaluation. So they might have an AT specialist in-house, or they might bring someone in from outside to do an AT evaluation. And that person will look at your child's background, look at their academic strengths and weaknesses, look at the kinds of academic tasks that might be helped out with assistive technology. They'll consider the environment that child is in, so they might do a classroom observation to see what kinds of AT tools might be appropriate for a particular classroom, what might work really well there. And then what you'll wind up with is a written report with suggestions for kinds of assistive technology tools that person, that assistive technology specialist, suspects might be helpful for that child. And then it's up to the IEP team to actually get those in place and make sure that they're being used in school. In terms of ADHD, ADHD is an interesting issue to have in terms of assistive technology. A lot of times the difficulties involved with ADHD are executive functioning difficulties. So in terms of assistive technology, your child it might be recommended that your child use electronic organizers, just an electronic calendar, something as simple as Google Calendar might be enough. But text-to-speech is actually, we were talking about text-to-speech earlier as an accommodation for reading, but it can also be a really good accommodation for kids with attentional issues because as you're hearing the text be read out loud, the better text-to-speech tools will also have synchronized highlighting. So we'll highlight the words as it's being read out loud as you're going along. So a lot of times that kind of AT accommodation, that text-to-speech with synchronized highlighting, can be very helpful for kids with ADHD because they're following along with their eyes and they're listening with their ears, and then suddenly they're not, thinking about what's coming up for lunch in the cafeteria, or what time I'm meeting my friend to play Minecraft over the weekend. So it can help with focus, I think, for that. I could probably keep going on with that too, Matt, but I think those are two good suggestions to get this person started. Yeah,
definitely. And as I mentioned before, if you're looking for more suggestions, definitely check out Understood, check out our Tech Finder tool, and I think you'll find a lot of that useful. So we talked about ADHD, we talked about executive functioning issues, we talked about dyslexia, but I wanted to make sure that we also hit on dysgraphia and writing issues, because that's kind of one part of what the chat's about. So can you talk about kind of what AT tools can help with writing issues like that?
Yeah, sure. And actually, the AT for writing issues, there's an overlap there between kids with dyslexia and kids with dysgraphia. And sometimes we know that kids have both of those issues. So in terms of, I'll try to talk specifically about dysgraphia, but we'll try to bring in some dyslexia there too. So in terms of dysgraphia, maybe the biggest issue that kids have is with handwriting. Writing legibly, being able to form letters correctly, things like that. So two really good writing tools, two really good assistive technology tools for that kind of issue are dictation and word prediction. So dictation is when you are speaking your words and the technology is transcribing those words into electronic text and printing them out on whatever screen or whatever device that you're using. So that would be fantastic for kids with dysgraphia, but also great for kids with dyslexia who have spelling issues, right? Word prediction is another great writing tool for kids with dysgraphia and dyslexia. Unlike dictation, kids are still using a keyboard when they're using word prediction. But what the technology is doing is looking at the first couple of characters that you're typing, or that your child is typing, and predicting what word they're trying to type out or trying to spell. And then it'll give you a list of maybe 5, 6, 7 choices that you can either click on or type a number next to whatever choice it is, and it will insert that directly into your text. So again, it can help kids with handwriting issues and also kids with spelling issues, kids with dyslexia with spelling issues. So keyboarding, dictation, very good writing tools for kids with dysgraphia. I think also, sometimes kids with dysgraphia might have difficulty getting their thoughts down on paper, maybe some word retrieval issues, things like that. So there are some tools that utilize word banks. So I'll just mention two. There's a great, almost new, I'll say almost new, maybe 4-month-old Chrome extension called Word Bank Universal. And it's kind of a sister app to CodeWriter Universal, if you're familiar with that word prediction tool. So Word Bank Universal will allow kids to have a word bank visible on the screen on whatever topic they're writing on, so on a specific topic. So they can look through and get reminders about ideas, thoughts about a particular topic, and then they can just click on those words or phrases in that word bank, and it will insert it right there into their text. So I think that can help with those word retrieval issues as well. There's a great iPad or iOS on-screen keyboard called Phraseboard Keyboard, which also works on this premise of word banks. And then one more issue, I think, might be organizing your thoughts into writing. Can affect both kids with both dysgraphia and dyslexia as well. And again, those electronic graphic organizers, I think, can help a lot with that.
That's really helpful. And to segue into one of our other questions, we're going to get to as many of these as possible, but if for whatever reason we don't get to your questions, please head over to our on-site community at u.org/community, where you can ask these questions and swap tips with other parents. But you mentioned graphic organizers, and there are electronic graphic organizers, and there are printed graphic organizers, which leads me to a question from Doug, who says, are there any non-device suggestions? Some families don't have the money for the technology, and the schools won't always provide them.
Sure. So a non-device suggestion for something like a graphic organizer would be your traditional paper organizer. So kids who need help organizing their ideas can certainly use those kind of old school kind of graphic organizers, like a Venn diagram or a written mind map. I do know that Understood has a great collection of downloadable graphic organizers that parents can certainly find on the site and download those to help with writing, things like that. I think unfortunately, in terms of reading issues, text really needs to be in an electronic format for a lot of these assistive technology tools to work. I think there are the free built-in text-to-speech in mobile devices can certainly be a great option for kids, for families and kids who are under a tight budget. You don't have to buy anything new. They're all built right into the operating system. There's built-in dictation for that. There's built-in text-to-speech for that. So all you really need is the actual device. And you don't have to buy expensive software, things like that.
Thanks. That's really helpful. So we're getting a bunch of questions, and I'm trying to just triage them a little bit. Can you talk about smart pens and for note-taking and anything around that you think is important for parents to know?
Sure. So when I hear smart pens, I think of two different things. One is the Live Scribe pen, and the other is like a scanning pen. So I'll try to touch on both of them. The LiveScribe Smart Pen, or the LiveScribe Pen, maybe it's a smart pen, is a physical pen. It has ink in it. You do need to write on paper with it. So maybe not the best option for kids with dysgraphia, who have handwriting that they might not be able to read afterwards. But basically what a LiveScribe will do is record what's going on, in the room, maybe during a class discussion or something like that, as kids are writing by hand on special paper. And then they can go back and tap on different parts of the paper, and the recording inside the pen will jump to that part of the discussion or the class, the recording. So they can kind of hear what was going on as they were taking those notes. So that's fairly useful, I think, for kids without significant spelling issues or without significant handwriting issues. If you do have one of those two significant issues, you might be better off using an electronic note-taking app that kind of does the same thing. So there's a great app available for at least Apple devices called Audio Note 2. There's a great Chrome extension called Mic Note, which also does the same thing. And it will do that same kind of recording as you're taking notes, except the notes you're taking are all electronic. So you can utilize things like word prediction or keyboarding to help out with whatever writing issues that you have, but you still have that recording to go along with it. Then the other kind of smart pen that comes to mind are scanning pens. Something like the newest one on the market is called C-Pen. It's a little handheld device, like a little handheld scanner, and you use it on a piece of paper, like a book, and you just scan it across it. And what it does is use a technology called OCR, or optical character recognition. It'll recognize, it'll take a photograph of the text and convert it into electronic text that the device will then read out loud with text-to-speech. So a scanning pen will do that. It'll help you read. It's most effective as a spot reader. So if you have individual words in a book that you might not know, you can scan the word and the pen will read it out loud to you. Other options, though, for that, if you want something in an all-in-one device, you can get one of those OCR apps for your phone, for your iPad or for your Android device, where you can take a picture of text and it'll do that same conversion, that same electronic conversion, and then read that text out loud. So just very quickly, a couple examples are Claro Scan Pen, C-L-A-R-O, Scan Pen, and that's available for both Apple and Android devices. Another great one is called Prismo, and a sister app that's fairly new is called Prismo Go. And they're both available for Apple devices as well.
Wow, those are such interesting devices and seem like they could be so helpful. I just worry if they could read my handwriting is thing. Okay, so we have time for a couple more questions. I want to get to them as many as we can. Ellie is asking, so she's a first grader, and the first grader is having trouble with her making her letters sound permanent and also memorizing sight words. But the crux of her question is, do you think first grade is too young to be starting to look at assistive technology?
No, absolutely not. I think you do, when you're considering assistive technology, and this is where an AT specialist can really help out, somebody who might be doing that AT evaluation as part of the IEP process. I think it's really important to consider a child's age and try to match up AT tools that are appropriate to both their age, the kinds of academic tasks that they're doing, and try to think of something that's not going to get in the way of any kind of language remediation that they're going through. So for a first grader like Ellie's child, who has some spelling issues, perhaps, the thing that I would recommend first would be something like a word prediction program or word prediction tool, so that Ellie, who hopefully is still going through some kind of language remediation, can practice all the phonics skills, I should say Ellie's child, can practice all those phonics skills that he or she is learning in school, but still have that AT accommodation in place. But in terms of reading issues for a first grader, if a first grader is having trouble developing a love of reading because they have significant reading issues, by all means, you should be implementing things like audiobooks or text-to-speech books with Bookshare or something like that, because it can really instill that love of reading and make them motivated to want to become better readers, both with and without technology. But I think also, when you're using something like text-to-speech technology and kids are following along with the written text, I think, to a certain degree, that can certainly help out, help cement those sound-symbol relationships, in the child's mind. So it can really kind of, give that remedial work a little bit of boost, I think, too.
So we've come almost to the end, but I want to ask you one more question, which is, there's a ton of information out there about assistive technology. There's a ton of different kinds of assistive technology. For parents who haven't started, who haven't really dipped their toes in, where do you suggest they first start?
Good question. And the thing that I always answer when people ask me this is start with a text-to-speech tool. Text-to-speech you can find built into any device that you have. It's very easy to use. It opens up the world of written text. We have so much written text, especially electronic, in electronic form these days, that text-to-speech will really open up, all of that information to kids. It'll get them involved in the conversation. It's a great reading tool. It's also a fantastic writing tool. A lot of people don't, realize this, but text-to-speech can be a fantastic writing tool because once a student has a draft of something written, they can, as the first step of the proofreading and the revising process, they can use text-to-speech to listen to what they've just written out loud. So they can listen for mistakes or listen to how something sounds and rework it, that kind of thing. So it's very useful in lots of different ways, and it's your toes wet in terms of the first thing that you're exposing them to in terms of assistive technology.
Jamie, thank you so much. I think this has been so valuable. If you're looking for more information, Jamie's done a ton of writing and reviewing on Understood about assistive technology for different platforms, so definitely check that out. So Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem, my pleasure. Can I tell a quick Thanksgiving joke for people to take to their dinner tables?
I would never stop you.
Okay. Why did the Beatles stop inviting Ringo to Thanksgiving?
Why, Jamie?
Because he didn't share the drumsticks, and they were British.
Yeah, both important parts of that joke. Jamie, thank you for that as well. And I want to thank our audience for joining as well. If you've missed any of this chat or want to watch it again or share it with someone, all of our events are archived at u.org/calendar. And if we didn't get to your question, please come and ask it in Understood Safe Online Community at u.org/community. Thanks again, and have a great Thanksgiving.